Hi, everyone. I know pedagogy, instruction, and assessment is the most challenging section for almost everybody. And I feel like it is the way you can most quickly increase your score because I can teach it to you in a clear, easy to understand format. So that being said, I wanted to make a free video with some tips and going over some information from Competency 1. So I'll share my screen and we'll go over some of the ideas you need to know for the pedagogy section. For these 45 multiple choice questions. Now, you will see on your score report that there's only 40, and that's because they throw out 5 questions. So pedagogy is just a fancy word for the art, science, or profession of teaching. Everything should be learner-centered. 26.6% of this test are on those 45 multiple choice questions, and the remaining 8% that's on pedagogy is on the lesson plan and essay. So the lesson plan is 4%, the English essay is 4%. All right. So Larry Selinker, you've probably never heard his name before unless you studied language acquisition. He proposed something called the Interlanguage Theory. He says that when we're speaking L2, we're still making mistakes related to L1 and we're overgeneralizing. So think of inter as connecting, right? So it's a language, yes, they're speaking L2, but it's still pretty connected to L1. So they're making mistakes related to L1. So language learners might say things like La bonita chica, because they're using the syntax from L1 from English and putting the adjective first. And in Spanish, we would usually put the adjective after the noun. So they're making mistakes like that. They also would overgeneralize. For example, the verb saber in the yo form, we know it's yo sé. But the rule is to drop the ER and add an O. So they might say yo sabo. Okay, that's called overgeneralizing when they learn a rule and they apply it all the time. So see, when they're using interlanguage, they are speaking L2, Spanish, but they're making mistakes related to L1 and they're overgeneralizing rules. L1, of course, I've been saying is language 1 and L2 is language 2. You'll probably see questions on the test about the difference between BICS and CALP. So BICS is the basic interpersonal communicative skills that is just conversational skills. And a lot of kids and people learn this in a year. But it takes 4 to 7 years to learn what's called CALP. That's the skills and language you need to be successful in an academic setting, cognitive academic language proficiency. So that's why some kids that are language learners, they pick up on the language pretty quickly, but they don't have the academic language to succeed in the classroom, and their grades might still struggle. They need extra language support. It's not a sign of a learning disability. The difference between language acquisition and language learning, this is huge. You'll see questions about this for sure on the test. So language acquisition is when you naturally acquire a language, you just pick it up. So this is how babies pick up a language. There's not direct instruction and language learning involved with conscious effort. We just speak to them a lot, read to them, play with them, and they pick up the language. And language acquisition experts now recommend that we use acquisition approaches even when teaching L2. So we want to help kids acquire L2 instead of direct teaching. Language learning is not as communicative and is a result of direct instruction. So it's been traditionally used for L2. But again, on the test, you want to think perfect world, we want to use acquisition methods. We talked about interlanguage. Remember, that was Larry Selinker's idea that you're speaking L2, making mistakes related to L1. And there's cognitive processes involved in L1 and L2. And I don't think you'll see a lot of this on the test, but the main thing to know is that when you're learning L1, you're usually a baby and an infant. When you're learning L2, you've already learned a language, usually, and you'll have what's called language transfer. You'll benefit from having learned a language. You'll also have something called language interference, where sometimes your knowledge of L1 makes it harder to learn certain parts of L2. I think that's a good stopping point because next we get into more language theories and everything. But if you're enjoying this, you might be interested in my courses or my tutoring, and I'd love to help you pass the LOTE. Thanks for watching.